This episode is sponsored by Meter, the company building better networks from the ground up. Meter delivers a full-stack networking solution, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one integrated system. From design and deployment to management and support, Meter takes care of it all so your business can stay fast, secure, and connected. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to meter.com/fierce network to book a demo now. That's meter.com/fierce network.
What was the coolest thing that came out of MWC? Was it 6G, AI? Did the robots take over? I'm Diana Gooverts, and this is the 5-9. So we are back from MWC Barcelona. We had a full week there. It was a chaotic scene, but it was an awesome scene. We got a lot of information, learned so much, and now know where the industry is headed for 2026. So I wanted to get our thoughts from the team about what the most interesting thing each of you heard at the show was. I know our calendars were all packed, but Liz, maybe why don't you kick us off? What was the coolest thing you heard about in Barcelona?
The robots didn't take over. That's one good thing. If they did, then I should have taken the red pill instead of the blue pill because maybe I'm in an alternate reality. But last week at Mobile World Congress, the biggest shift I saw wasn't about whether AI matters for telecom. That debate is over. What's changed now is how seriously the industry is talking about putting AI to work inside live networks. The tone was more grounded than in past years. Instead of flashy demos and future promises and the words AI slapped on, press releases and walls and inside booths, it was really vendors are really focused on how AI is being embedded into core networks ran in operations to improve efficiency, resilience, and automation. So AI isn't being sold as a product anymore. It's being framed as infrastructure, which I thought was really interesting. One idea that kept coming up was the agentic network and agentic AI. I'm sure everybody who was at the show knows that. And the notion that networks will function as coordinated systems of AI agents making decisions based on an intent rather than manual configuration. This is something that I thought was really interesting. T-Mobile and others at the show describe this as a path toward a more autonomous, self-optimizing network, but the subtext was more important. This only works if the underlying network architecture and data flows are ready for it. So that's where some skepticism came in. Hyperscalers like Google Cloud are pushing hard to run more of the telco AI stack using AI. They're promising higher levels of automation. Operators are interested, but they're still really cautious. There's a real question about control, like who owns the network intelligence and how much autonomy is too much. Another reality check I found interesting was data. This is something that I've been thinking about and we've been writing about on Fierce Network for the past year. Multiple companies stress that AI doesn't need more data, it needs better curated network data. So without that, automation and observability break down quickly. My biggest takeaway is that telecom is entering a more pragmatic phase of the AI cycle. The ambition is there, but now it's starting to collide with real constraints like infrastructure, data quality, and business models. So for this year ahead, the question isn't whether AI belongs in the network, it's whether the network is actually ready for AI.
And it's really interesting that you're talking about pragmatism. And I know that you spoke to Google Cloud. I actually spoke to Microsoft, not at the show, but immediately after, as schedules were just a little bit crazy. And I finally got someone to admit an AI use case on the network that doesn't work. I was speaking to Microsoft's telco CTO, and he was saying, they, as recently as 6 months ago, they were still pushing the line that predictive maintenance, or not predictive maintenance, but being able to predict anomalies was a thing to do. But what he kind of said is, over the past period of time, they've kind of realized that all of the complexity that that model brought into the network and those algorithms and trying to feed all that data, it was basically, in a nutshell, more trouble than it's worth, right? It created so much complexity that the returns just didn't pan out. So they're kind of pivoting more towards network operations and speeding time to repair, as well as, interestingly enough, BSS. But I thought that was really interesting. The other thing for me that came out of the show uh, was wireless sensing, right? So I'm kind of stuck in the world of data centers and cloud and AI, but um, I heard a lot of people talking about ISAC, which I think is integrated sensing and communications. And basically, what that means is in future networks, I don't want to throw 6G around because I'm sure we'll talk about that more, but um, in those future networks, the network will actually be able to sense things around it. So, objects and all of that great stuff, the environment, they'll able to be to spot movement. And so what that opens up is a whole new realm of use cases that might be useful to operators. Now, I heard that in conversations with, Qualcomm and Rode, Rhoda and Schwartz and Viavi and Nokia. Of course, they have a vested interest in kind of talking up the future potential, but I again, a little bit of skepticism there because we heard so much about the promise of 5G, and then it hasn't really panned out, right? They're still looking for the killer use case that'll make the investment in 5G worthwhile, and so I wonder if even if they do have sensing in a 6G world, will they actually be able to convert that into revenue? I don't know. I certainly think it was an interesting possibility, and again, it's still very early um, in the conversations around future networks, but for me, that was one of the cooler ideas that came out of MWC. I think there are actually already some people who do this with wireline networks. So fiber, I think we've written about that before, using it to, for instance, detect accidents or other kind of disturbances in the ground. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not that'll be a thing on wireless networks. But I was busy, in a studio. Monica, you were on the ground talking to a ton of wireless executives, an absolute ton. What was the coolest thing they said to you?
I don't know if I'd call it necessarily cool, but interesting. The number of people who said Open RAN is not dead; it's in every operator's RFP. So to say that it's dead is really not true. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And also, it kind of I had asked this question a couple years ago when it comes to Open RAN, like, isn't that maybe a 6G thing? It kind of is because you're not going to rip out your stuff to put in Open RAN. You're going to put it in when you do the next cycle of new infrastructure. So that kind of makes sense. And then that leads to 6G. Well, 6G is also AI RAN. Totally, AI is in the RAN. And I agree with what Liz said earlier. It's like not like they're no longer just sticking AI in every press release and on their booth everywhere. It's actually becoming more of a real thing. Although I think they still need to work on the use cases. But it also, to another point about AI, is that almost everybody had NVIDIA in their press release. It was funny. NVIDIA World Congress is what it's really summed up to be. But yeah, that's some interesting things that I noticed. And also the non terrestrial network stuff, NTN, which is really basically satellites in your phone. SpaceX was there doing a keynote where we learned how they're really going to beef up their next generation satellites to do a lot more and with a lot more operators. And their theme was like satellite is complementary to terrestrial networks, which was a good thing to say when they're standing in front of operators. Yeah, and that was pretty exciting too. And again, we'll see how all that shakes out.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you mentioned SpaceX because I saw that Starlink, I think, had their own booth, if you will. I think it was between Hall 3 and 5. And I didn't get a chance to stop in, but I did pass by. So it was interesting to see them on the show floor. And I wonder if in future we'll see more satellite companies, kind of the way we saw cloud kind of float into the MWC world not that long ago. But Dan, you also had a ton of meetings with a ton of people. Uh, what was your biggest takeaway from the show?
Well, like the rest of us, I mean, satellite was clearly up in the air at the Mobile World Congress. I spoke to Rakuten Symphony, who are releasing a OSS for satellite services, which sounds very unusual. And they said the main reason that there was a satellite services OSS is because they've added a fourth dimension, time. Other than that, obviously, I talked to a lot of 6G people, and I guess one of the things that I hadn't really kind of grasped before was it's going to require 400 megahertz to roll out macro 6G, at least in its initial form, which is a lot of spectrum.
So Dan, maybe give us some context before we keep moving ahead. I mean, 400 megahertz today, I think it's only what, like, people deal in 5 and 20, but the channels are maybe what, maybe 100 megahertz.
Channels are like 100 to 190.
So we're talking doubling here, and that's a big deal, especially because isn't spectrum scarce? I think that's one of the things we've covered a lot.
Definitely scarce, yes.
Where are we going to get this, out of thin air,
Um,
or are they going to go up higher in the spectrum bands? What did you
Up
hear?
higher in the spectrum bands, I'm hearing 4.5, 6, and 7. Most likely kind of global and US kind of bands for the 2028 kind of time frame. And again, 2028 is going to be an important year, although that's not going to be the year that 6G actually kind of becomes commercial. That is going to be the year it gets standardized, and that is going to be the year where operators and vendors show off 6G, initial 6G kind of pilots at the LA Olympics.
I saw something on our bingo board. I hope everybody played along with us. I certainly played. It makes MWC a little bit more fun, a very busy event, but it injects some life into it. I actually saw not one, but two people wearing the Meta Ray-Ban AI glasses. Shout out to Anshul Sag, who is from More Insights and Strategy. He's a friend of the pod. I was surprised that I did not see puppies on the show floor. Dan, did you end up hearing anything about GigaMimo?
Not so much, but I did hear a little bit about distributed MIMO.
Oh, okay. What is
Yep.
that?
That is where people kind of combine radios over time to kind of form little MIMO squares.
I was also looking at the bingo board again. I was expecting to see someone asleep, but I did not. Did anybody else?
I did not. I think I was the one who actually put that one on there because I remember last year I saw like 3 people just passed out. I did not see anybody. I did see somebody wearing high heels, but I think we took that off the card.
A brave
Stilettos, to be
soul
exact.
indeed, wearing high heels.
Yes, they were stilettos, and it was her first show. And I said, "Oh yes,
And her last.
don't wear
Bless her.
next year. Just wear sneakers
Oh,
like
goodness.
everyone else is." What else did we have on that card?
We also had a canceled meeting. I had a canceled meeting.
I did too.
There was also saw someone for the first time in a year. I saw many people for the first time in a year.
Yep.
And then let's see, what else do we have? We heard plenty of talk about standards. We talked about satellite connectivity. Anybody see a dancing robot?
Yep.
Where was it? Do you remember?
It was on the honor stand in Hall 3.
Oh, good memory, Dan. All
Yeah.
right. And then my last question for you all. Did everyone get to eat their favorite tapas dish?
Yes.
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 Awesome. I'm so
Oh,
stoked.
I just want to say before we wrap, Monica discovered her love of olives, which is my favorite
Yes.
too.
Spain. They have to be in Spain, from Spain.
Only in
Yes.
Spain. Yeah, I generally am not a fan of olives either, but Liz, I was happy to let you have them when we went out for tapas together. Uh, all right. So that is a wrap from us from MWC. Make sure you check out our coverage tracker. It is titled Mobile World Congress 2026, complete coverage from the Fierce Network. It is on our website. Don't miss it. You will find every story that we wrote last week, and you don't want to miss any of those because they were truly wonderful. So thank you all for your time. And remember, wherever you are listening or watching, like and subscribe so you get more from us. And we will see you again next time.